Can I get more?
Hey everybody, what's up? Frank Fridelli here with the Art of Creation Show, the all new, all different, not much different, some different, slightly different, shorter, certainly more focused, more laser-like focus for the issues that are plaguing you every day, your creation type issues. But as always, some things never change, and I'm here with the exceptional, the extraordinary, the not to be outdone, Rebecca Jane Boswell. Rebecca, where are you coming from today?
Yes, well, I am shooting on location today, Frank. I'm live at Taziki's Greek restaurant in Greenville, South Carolina, and bringing to you the energy of souvlaki and Greek salad and all of the accoutrements that brings with it.
How does it get any better than that?
How does it?
Is this just out of curiosity? Is this a paid product placement or?
What would it take? What would it take? I'd be willing to be paid for that.
Those of you who are interested in the dozens of people who watch our show having their eyeballs on your product, now you've seen what product placement on our show can look like. So.
Yes, absolutely, we are force of consciousness, and we will be and do that for you and your. Just give us a ringy dingy.
Ringy dingy, one ringy dingy, two ringy dingies. Yeah.
So Frank, what are we going to play with today on this new show of Amazingness?
You know, I'm being a little selfish today, and I'm going to own that because I came to the show today. I just came in from outside. Now I don't know where you are watching in the world, but right now in Torino, Italy, it is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. It is hot as balls outside. And unlike America where, like, you know, I lived in Florida, like you could be walking on the surface of the sun when you step outside. It doesn't matter because everything is air conditioned. And here, that's just not the case, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about allowance today because I need some help with this because I just I went to one of my favorite cafes. There's this lovely young Russian girl who works there, and she helps me with my Italian every day. I go in to buy a cappuccino. It's all nicey nice. But her place was not only not air conditioned, but it had no breeze. So sitting in there for a half an hour writing was just, I was dying. So yeah. I mosey down the street a little bit, and I see one place that offers free Wi-Fi and air conditioning, and I'm like, I am going in there. So,
and they both actually work at the same time?
They both work at the same time. So, well, at least theoretically, because I didn't get that far. So I walk in there, and there are basically there's two kinds of people that I've encountered here in Italy where language is concerned. Three, let's say three. So the first is I can try to speak Italian, and when I fail at it, like when we get to a point where like the Italian that I know doesn't work anymore, then it's like, listen, I'm sorry, I don't speak Italian, I'm trying. And they're like, no, I'm sorry, I can't help. And I'm like, no, why would you be sorry? I'm in Italy, I don't speak your language. And then we have a nice little laugh about it. And then there are some people who like realize that I can't speak Italian, and they're just like, all right, I can't. And they just like kind of check out. Like, I don't know any English, I can't help you, we're done. Or they might find somebody else to help me. And today I met the third variety, which is like not like a unicorn, but not nice like a unicorn. Not like glittery sparkly. This is like a shit covered unicorn. Like not nice. Not nice. So they're like, oh, you come here but you don't speak Italian, and now you're walking in my shop, huh? All right, so I'm like, listen, I don't know what I want yet. Maybe something cold to drink. That'd be nice. So a cold drink. And so I went over to the cooler to grab something, but the cooler wasn't on. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, yeah, you have to talk to, and he's telling me in Italian, you have to talk to me if you want a cold drink. I'm like, okay, well, can I have one of these cold? And he's like, yeah. So he gives me that, and he charges me for it. And it's like this big, and it was like €2. And I'm like, okay. So I take that and I kind of wander around the place, and I find a little corner and I sit down, and that guy comes from behind the counter, and he's like, he starts rambling off in Italian. He's clearly upset with me, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And then like he starts pantomiming, and the whole long and the short of it turns out to be that if I just want to have a cold drink at the counter, that was one price. But if I actually wanted to sit down, he wanted me to pay him more for the same drink.
A table charge or a cover charge?
there was like two old men in there. Like there was literally no other customer. Like literally there were two guys in there who were like Methuselah and his older brother. And like they were going to die any moment. And then I was all he had. And like this guy is like, yeah, listen, if you want to sit down in my place, you're going to have to, you're going to have to pay me, you non-Italian speaking bastard. And so I was,
Yeah, so what did that, what did that actually all mean for you, Frank? So what is that actually in your world?
So this is where my I acknowledge that there are times where I am not looking for facilitation, where like I am perfectly okay when somebody is being a dick to me to having a reaction that's like, you know what? You're making me angry and I don't like you. And and the reason I don't like you isn't because of me. It's because of you're being a dick, right? And like I'm okay. I am totally an allowance of myself having that emotional reaction because for me it seems reasonable. There are times where I will self-process when like I realize that I'm having an emotional reaction that is unreasonable.
Yeah.
Right? So like my 2-year-old son accidentally spills water on me. Like I don't get crazy angry at him. Right? Because like he's 2 and he didn't do it on purpose and he wasn't being deliberately mean. He wasn't being an elf, right? So, yeah, so this thing about allowance is really interesting for me right now because it brings up, should I have been more an allowance of this guy, or was I just okay being an allowance of my choice to be angry with him for 5 minutes and just kind of let that run its course and then walk away from it?
So what did that create? What did that create? And it's like, is there actually a sometimes it's like, okay, so now I chose that, and now I also have awareness, right? Choice creates awareness. So we have a choice, and then we have the awareness that it creates, and it's like, oh, okay, that actually creates a different future as opposed to decaying my future or destroying my future. So the allowance, that allowance. Yeah, the only other piece that I would invite though, and just for people watching, because these kinds of things happen all the time, is just also recognizing where we begin to contract into our bodies and start to, where our bodies then are receiving the effects of what's going on. So sometimes we can just be the energy of whatever and be an allowance of that. And when we start making them a solidity or have some effect on the body, what is that creating in your body? And is that a kindness to you? And so in expanding out, even if we choose to be pissed off, can we also expand out? And whether we're choosing, allowance or not, if we're actually just also inviting in a little bit more space, what kind of ease could that give us?
Right. So it actually felt like a kindness to me to allow myself to experience the emotional reaction, to feel what I felt, but not to give over to it, not to make it my day, right? Like I'm not going to let a shitty encounter ruin my entire day, right? And so this is where like I was actually kind of glad for the tools that I've got where like I was aware of that. Like I was aware that this thing made me angry, that I probably had a right to be a little upset with his treatment of a customer, and that a few minutes from now I was going to be fine about it, right? Like this guy was nothing to me. He was never going to be anything to me, and he was never getting my business again. So like I didn't care. But I wasn't making myself wrong for feeling what I felt. And that was the awareness that I got, that I was proud of myself, that I wasn't immediately going into this wrongness, that I wasn't a Vulcan.
Yeah, and for choosing what you chose. I mean, that's the thing too, is the more that we recognize what we choose and that we choose, right? What does that create as we start to build that choosing muscle? And, with things like this with me, because, all kinds of things will show up and all kinds of people and all kinds of dynamics that we've decided are fun or not fun or whatever. And, when stuff like this comes up too, it's like, oh, okay, there is actually some gratitude, because all of these points of view will start to come up of like, wow, interesting. I have that point of view about this. I have this point of view about like what I should have been or what they should have been or how it should be or what, could or should have been different. It's like, wow, what an invitation to be able to see and acknowledge and own all those things, and then choose the same thing if that works, choose something different, have all kinds of different possibilities show up that I wasn't even aware of before this encounter. So it's like I get to also clear all these places where I have a point of view that's not just an interesting point of view, but actually a fixed one. That then, like, what I recognize in my life is the more that I have a fixed point of view about something where I've made it solid and real, it tends to show up a lot until I'm willing to see it as an interesting point of view. And all of a sudden it's like the charge goes out, and either it shows up and it just has no effect. And I also get that it just doesn't show up as often at all, because there isn't anything for that energy in the world to kind of glom onto that I'm choosing or creating.
Right. So yeah, you get to choose
awesome.
how sticky you are to think.
Yeah,
right?
that.
So
that.
Yeah, so this whole thing, as with everything, right, is about choice, right? And it became this thing where, like, I chose to just, like, and I think he was charging me like an extra 40 cents, but it was like there was a surcharge on everything that I was going to buy, and it was just like, clearly I didn't understand what he was saying, and he was just trying to make my life difficult.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that looks back now and it's like, okay, I could have chosen something different there, and I could have just paid him the 40 cents and sat down. Yeah. But there was an annoyance because I don't get the sense that he was charging other people.
Yeah, and how much of this is not so much about you being an allowance of him being an asshole, as much as it's actually you being an allowance of all the places where you could have been hooked into being wrong there, and you actually were an allowance of you, however it showed up, and in whatever ways it was showing up, and all of his invitations to you being wrong, you actually were still willing to be you and not crumple into his reality.
Right. So, and this is also a contribution in the respect that it's very easy when you're living someplace as magical as Italy, right? It's and literally, I've been here for almost 2 full months now, and this is the first guy who's been an outright dick. And so,
that's
all of this
great.
time,
statistically, how'd you get so lucky?
Right, statistically, it's amazing, right? And so there's all of these places where I've met all of these amazing people who think it's like, oh man, all right, I don't speak any English and you barely speak Italian. Let's work it out. Let's find a way. What do you want? Cappuccino with milk, with chocolate? What do you want? Right? And so like it becomes a game. Like they're immediately willing to be helpful. And this has been my overwhelming experience here. And I think this was an important encounter for me in that people are people wherever you go, right? And like it was easy to forget that and to immediately like put Italian people into this really awesome box of awesomeness. And like all of them are going to be this way forever. And then like all of a sudden there's this one guy who's a little, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, people.
Yeah.
People. People everywhere you go, right? Yeah, people happen, right? And so, like, I had the same encounter when I lived in China. Although when I lived in China, that shine came off the apple really fast. Like, that happened within the first couple of days of me being there. Like, maybe the second day I was there, it was like, oh man, like I'm not on vacation here anymore. Like, I live here, and like I'm very different, and I don't speak enough of their language to be one of them. And like, the thing about living in other places. That I find so fascinating. Like growing up in the United States, if I were to ask you what a Japanese person looks like, you can describe somebody with black hair and kind of the Asian eye. There's a specific name for that kind of upper lid, but like you could describe a typical Asian person, right? And if I asked you to describe a Russian or somebody from Israel, or like, there are these basic visual types that you can kind of like lump people into because everybody in that country is of that country. Whereas America, it's a big melting pot. If I asked you what a typical American looked like, whatever answer you gave me would be wrong because there is no typical American. We're black, white, we're Asian, we're Hebrew, we're all over the map. So living in China, I was very outside of I was the not normal, right? I was the sore thumb sticking out, and so that was a very interesting place to come from, where I realized how many places I've seen people be unkind simply because you're the other, that you're different. And I think I've encountered it less here in Italy because I'm Italian, right? I'm 100% Sicilian. Like my bloodline goes back to Sicily for thousands of years. So I'm coming home to Italy and I look like everybody here. So like, it's not a big deal, right? Like I even do, like, what are you kidding me with this, right? Like all the time, So that's going to be our next show, by the way. Italian hand gestures, like, right?
The whole thing will just be in hands. We'll speak in hands.
I love it. So
yeah. Well, and I wonder, all the biomimetic mimicry also, like that you could be running on the entire country, right, and all of those bloodlines going back and what could change.
I love it. So what are you doing right now that you're out on a little break right now, but you're in
I'm part of Susan Lazar Hart's 3-day body class. We've put together this amazing class with amazing people. And it has been a very busy couple of weeks here in Greenville, preparing to do a gypsy trip a gypsy trip of family. I call it the annual filial duty tour around all the different grandparents places and getting to see everyone with the kids. That'll be great. And then transitioning over to Austin. So in the swing of all of that, I've been facilitating a lot of body classes and just single body process classes, and did a big foundation last weekend, which was amazing. Facelift classes. It's just been go. And then today it was like my whole body has been buzzing to get to this class and get my body on the table. And it's just like, I got on the table. I was like, yes, I'm so happy. So this is what it looks like when Rebecca has a very happy body.
you look radiant. You really do. Like everything in my body is going, I want that, please.
Yes.
I'll have what she's having.
I'm not sure if I tried, to have a fixed point of view right now, I'm not sure that would even stick. So if you're considering any kind of body processes or 3-day body class, only choose it if you would like to have more ease with your body, and if you'd like to just have more ease and letting releasing more of those points of view that we have that bind us up and create that in the body. So I just wonder, it's interesting timing, Frank. I'm wondering how much is your body actually asking? You're asking about allowance and increasing that allowance, because there is that big thing of when we have more and more awareness and our allowance hasn't quite caught up to it yet, and it can kind of create this thing. And what would actually create greater for you, and what would create more ease in your body, and with all of these things that you're bumping up against. I mean, what would it take to go and give your body a body process with another practitioner, and and then maybe go into that same place and just see, hey, I wonder if anything has changed with this guy, and what if you could actually be the invitation for him to choose something different? And who knows, what if like in 6 months you're like, oh, let me tell you this story. My best friend down the road, Luigi, I hated him the first time I met him, right? And what if that could change everything on the planet?
Right.
Just saying, just saying. What else is possible?
I love that. And I thank you for the invitation. You are Rebecca Boswell. And folks, we're coming up on the end of our new shorter time limit here.
Yeah.
But what I love that we had one topic, and like this was like powerful and it felt potent. I love the format. I hope you guys are enjoying it too.
Yes.
We'll be back next week, and there's stuff that I want to talk about there too. And I'm very excited about this because you're creating so much right now. I'm going to be in London for a video class that I've created, and I'm going to be in Slovenia for a relationship class that I'm doing. There's so much going on in our worlds, and I can't wait to talk about it. But you're going to have to come back next week to find out more. Yes,
on our consistently inconsistent Art of Creation show. You can count on us every week if you can find when we're live. We'd love to have you playing live with us. Otherwise, you can catch the replay when it gets posted on Fridays. And if there's something you'd like us to talk about, and if you'd like to be involved in that, you can come and be a part of the chat on the YouTube channel. And you can also, on the Facebook page for the Art of Creation show, you can post things throughout the week, questions that you have, wonderings, things you'd like to change, conversations you're curious about, whatever. So yeah.
And literally whatever. This morning somebody posted a cute video of a baby elephant chasing birds. We'll take anything on that page. Please come and play with us.
Please, and what does that create? And thank you. The energy of that is just super fun, and I'll have more of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. I've been your host, Frank Fridell, alongside the beautiful, the amazing, the talented, and the super sexy Rebecca Jane Boswell.
And every week we'll just keep asking too, how will you out-create yourself between now and our next show? So we can't wait to find out.
Thanks, everybody. Ciao.
Bye.